Hi, my name's Craig and welcome to my YouTube channel, The Running Whale. Today I'm not running and I haven't been for the last 2 weeks. If you're new to the channel, I've been benched by physio because I've been running on an injury since the early part of this year. I'm kind of ignoring it and hoping it just go away like us runners do. Anyway, unfortunately it hasn't. But in my time of not running, it's reminded me really of the importance of running to me. Back in 2019 I actually wrote a blog about why I started running. I did it because I think it was a mental health awareness period. I seem to be having those. I don't know when they are, but I did it for that anyway. So the video is completely different to the usual sort. Service will be resumed as normal soon, in at least 2 weeks' time. I'm going to try and do a little bit of a run walk type thing at parkrun at the weekend. I do touch on some subjects that might be hard for some people to digest, so viewer discretion really is advised. It's just a talking video. I think it's about 20 minutes long. Might be worth just getting a brew. Yeah, so this isn't about sympathy or anything like that, or I'm not doing it for the subs or anything like that. I'm simply doing this because I think sometimes understanding people and where they come from kind of makes more sense when you see them and how they are. And I hope that that comes across from me. I like to keep things usually quite cheery and happy, but obviously, tell by title, this one's not going to be. So, I'm going to take a drink, get ready for this race which starts in 3 minutes, and then probably go and finish off this video and share it with you guys. So I hope you do enjoy it. Not enjoy it, but I just hope that it can put into perspective for a few people just how things can turn around, things can improve, and you can actually take control back, which is ultimately what this is about. So without me going on anymore, I'll hand you over to Reading Glasses Craig, and I'll see you soon. I want to tell you my story. If you look up any condition online, you are usually looking for 2 answers. What is the cause and what is the fix? Of course, I was brought up at an age where the internet was a luxury. I believe that reading something like the following, an account of someone's experience with similar issues online, would have only helped me. I hope that in reading this, I can help you or your loved ones recognise any signs of eating disorders and depression. This is my story of how power can be taken back. To really understand my story, I need to take you back to the year 2000. I had recently come out to my family and friends, and life seemed to be looking up. No more did I have to keep a secret from the people I loved. I felt like I could finally be the person I had kept locked away for so many years. I'd recently split up with my boyfriend at the time, but being 22, I felt like my life had just begun. The funny thing was, growing up it felt like the biggest thing in my life. Everything was based around keeping this big secret. The older you get, the less important it became. Of course, going out on the scene was a part of my new life, and over the next few years I partied. The one thing I did learn was how inflexible some gay people were on detail. If your clothes clung to you, you were fat. If you had reached 30, you were over the hill. I had not, however, realised that I had, over this period, managed to grow a beer belly, all of my own. It was pointed out to me one night at a game of bingo in the pub I frequented in Bradford after winning a t-shirt in a game of bingo, and a drag queen brought me a large, commenting on my size. This was the turning point. I should, at this stage, mention that I adore comedy, drag queens, sarcasm, and the rest. I can dish out, and I like to think I can handle. However, at that single moment in my life, I could not, and I was devastated. So much time has gone by, and so it's hard to say how soon after this my real problem started. It would be unfair of me to say that a single comment from a queen in a gay bar had caused what was to follow. I had suffered another personal trauma in the previous year which took some time to come to terms with. This combination was the perfect storm and would start something that, to this day, I still battle. Looking up the word bulimia describes the act of binge eating followed by purging. It sounds so ridiculous, and you would of course question why. Why would anybody put themselves through such a disgusting thing? Well, while I can't speak for everyone else, I can unfortunately speak for myself. The voice in your head, the one you hear when you're reading to yourself, the one you're listening to right now, you know that voice very well. It's been your companion all through your life, and no matter who comes in and out of your life, that voice remains. You probably trust that voice, and why not? You're still drawing breath. It's told you to turn left when you turn left. It's given you recipes when you're in your kitchen fixing lunch. And it makes sense of your day for you when you close your eyes to go to sleep. Now imagine for 1 minute that voice decides one day that it doesn't like you very much. It sees your problems and shows them to you as something you have caused. It can see everything you can see and manages to manipulate it, making you believe that it is your fault. You grow a spot on your face, and rather than talk you into fixing it, you stare at that spot and suddenly you're ugly. Your friends don't want to go out one night, and it's probably because they're fed up with you. You eat a sensible meal and you're fat. You're not just fat, you're fat and ugly. Why would anybody ever want anything to do with you when you're fat and ugly? My voice had become my worst enemy, and I had no idea how self-destructive it had become. What made this even more dangerous was the fact I was a young man. Stereotypically, this condition was something you might find a young woman or teenage girl to suffer from, but not a young man. It was all-out war. Not me versus my voice, but me versus food. And I was determined to win. I don't recall the day it started. I just remember that I had once again found myself in a closet, keeping secrets from people that I loved. Every Sunday I would get weighed at a local boot, and I was mortified if my weight had not dropped off. I went with family some weeks, and on those days I would make sure I had my heaviest shoes, jeans and pockets with change, just to make the weight loss less obvious. I knew it was a problem, but couldn't stop. My routine had become very straightforward. Eat a meal, go to the toilet. Eat a snack, go to the toilet. I could have whatever I wanted, and I knew that minutes later it would be flushed away. That's how it reads online when you look this up. The truth is, I would wake up in the morning with no energy at all, and as soon as my eyes opened, the voice was there telling me I was hungry, but in the same breath telling me I was fat, telling me I was worthless. I needed food, but I needed not to have food, over and over again. I'd find myself looking for something that might taste nice but hurt less when I was getting rid of it. The voice would help me choose and immediately tell me it was going to make me fatter. I needed to get this done. As soon as it was, I was okay, but only for a few minutes. The hunger never left me, and with that, neither did the voice. It wasn't telling me to turn left or right, helping me to choose an outfit. It was just telling me I was hungry, but I was fat and shouldn't be. I don't even remember how long this went on for, and in truth, I believe this is because, to this day, that thought remains. Throughout this nightmare, there were moments I believed things were improving. I was living with a good friend at the time, and he worried so much about me. Seeing him upset over this crushes me to this day. The day I thought I'd claimed my life back was at an absolute low. I was in the bathroom after eating an entire pack of pastries, and after I had finished, I stood up and blanked out. The next memory was my friend picking me up out of the bath as I had collapsed into it. He was in tears and begged me to stop. My voice had now become his enemy too, and I needed to stop. I felt so foolish, and I couldn't even talk to a doctor in fear of being dismissed because I was not a young woman or a teenage girl. I didn't get any help and remained quiet. I did speak with friends, and it did of course help. Foolishly, I began smoking, thinking this would suppress my appetite. It worked for a while, but I've lived long enough and learned enough about myself to understand that I had simply replaced one addiction with another. Life seemed to be back on track, but I'd gotten to the point where I believed I wasn't good enough for anyone, and this, to be fair, still resides. The battle was still on with my weight, and I only ever remember going from one diet to another. But I was eating, that was the main thing. In 2008, I started to have problems with my wisdom teeth. All 4 of the little buggers were on the move and needed to be removed. My morning in the hospital was booked, and the teeth were removed. I was given a box of Cocodamol and sent on my way. Weeks passed, and the pain subsided, but the voice had discovered something new. The very drug I was sent away with to help with the pain had grabbed me, and was not ready to let go. I found myself driving around various chemists asking for cocodamols that could be bought over the counter in lower doses. Of course, my tolerance was greater, and so I would not think anything about taking 4 at a time, and there was no way I was waiting 4 whole hours before taking more. The voice that held me captive was back, and I couldn't stop it. I should also point out that my circle of friends had reduced dramatically. I do not blame a single one of them, and I hope that in reading this they understand where I went, not geographically but in myself. I was removed from the world, and if I'm honest, if I didn't live with my family at that stage, I don't know where I would or wouldn't be right now. It was around 2010 when I began to struggle with sleeping. An appointment to see the doctor was made, and it was much shorter a visit than I had expected. I was asked to answer some questions on a form. I answered all the questions and felt my answers were normal, but apparently, according to the 10 or so boxes I had ticked, I was at this point depressed. I recall saying to the doctor that I was the least depressed person I know, laughing it off. He prescribed me with citalopram, and after a few more visits and being stuck on a waiting list to see a therapist, once again I felt that I was on the mend. By 2011, it was obvious that this was not the case. I found the drugs had made me sluggish at best, and I'd taken to coming home from work, sleeping till around 7 p.m, having some food and then going back to bed. It wasn't long before none of my clothes would fit me. The voice in my head was quiet and wasn't there to save me from it. The citalopram took care of that. A new problem had started. My sleep was again interrupted, but this time with pain in my back. It seemed relentless. It hurt to stand, it hurt to sit, and in the morning it was excruciating to wake up to. I returned to the doctor and was prescribed both cocodamol, the stronger dose, and tramadol. It wasn't long and the voice had woken back up. I'd hit a new low, lower than I ever imagined I could, or so I thought. 2012 came, and this was the year everything came crashing down around me. It was early in the year when our mum had begun to suffer with pain in her back. She'd suffered for a number of years with a condition called lupus, which had led to other complications. We took her to the doctors and he rushed her to the hospital. While she was in hospital, she seemed to be making progress, and while there, her brother, our uncle, was also in. He passed away, and Mum seemed to have made progress enough that I was able to take her to his funeral. Sadly, a few weeks later, Mum also passed away. She was my absolute rock and had been there for all of us through everything, and now she was gone. I will never forget coming home from the hospital. I couldn't catch my breath. It was a pain like I'd never felt before, and would never wish on anyone, not a single living soul. Within weeks, a colleague and friend from work had also passed away. They say things come in threes, but this was beyond anything I could ever imagine. I'd been my mum's carer for a few years and tried so hard to make her life as normal as possible. The voice was again a large feature in my life. Well, that same voice started to lay out blame. It was my fault I'd not looked after her properly. I was broken. Shortly after returning to work, I was called into an office and advised that I was being made redundant. This was the icing on the cake. I walked out of the office and remember thinking to myself, what about the dogs? The thought prior to this was too upsetting to repeat, that I knew I was relied upon by 2 innocent dogs. I should explain, our mum not only left 2 sons, a daughter and a grandchild behind, but she left 2 Yorkshire Terriers, Thomas and Phoebe. I now had custody of said dogs, and they needed looking after. I didn't think about anything else apart from those 2. I left the office and sat in the car. I cried and then I called my sister. We decided enough was enough. We should get away for a bit. Booked a caravan and had a break away from everything. I knew my sister needed this as much as me, as she seemed to have not handled our mum's death as well as my brother or me. Going back to my weight, I'd not been on the scales for some time, but here's a picture of me in the caravan to show just how bad things had got. I decided to make some changes to my life. I was taking back control. My brother had taken up running some years previously, and he entered a ballot a number of times to do the London Marathon. Mum watched it every year and was so proud of my brother for his achievements. I was also very proud of him and somewhat envious. His drawers were filling up with race t-shirts and his wall with medals. If you suggested a walk to me back then, it was like swearing. I decided that I would start running. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I also knew that if I focused the voice, that if I could persuade the voice that had been set on self-destruct for all these years onto running, only good would come of it. I downloaded MyFitnessPal on my phone and began to lose weight sensibly. It was a good idea as I got on the scales at the beginning of December and my weight was around 17.5 stone. I wanted to shed some before heading off outside, thinking I would be mocked by people seeing me. I went cold turkey and stopped the drugs. No more painkillers, no more antidepressants, just me and my determination. January 2013 came, and with that my first run. I was ill prepared, and my first attempt was carried out in old trainers, jogging pants and a cotton t-shirt. My brother came with me and was very patient. He suggested jogging to one lamppost and walking to the next. Of course, this was even too much, and I didn't manage a second lamppost. But what I did manage was to start, and that was the only thing that mattered. My progress was slow, my legs were in pain, and I wouldn't dare go out on my own. Both my brother and sister were such a big support. My sister hated running, but came every Saturday morning with me onto the canal for some jog-walk sessions. Eventually, I had a day off work, new job, and decided it was a nice day. I would go to the canal on my own and do a run. It was short, but I did it, and I cannot begin to describe the sense of independence this gave me. I was in pain. I'm not sure I enjoyed it at the time. I could barely walk, but it was the first thing I did on my own in such a long time. The voice that had for so long worked against me was now working with me. It wanted to go out and do a run, and it was happy when I had. I said my progress was slow, and it took me a year to be able to run a full mile without stopping. I'd met my brother at his house. He has a lap he does if he arrives home a mile or two early, and can do this exact mile to finish off his run with precise mileage. He suggested I try this with him, and off we went. It hurt like hell, my legs were in pain, my breathing was awful, but once again I achieved something I never thought possible. I continued to run, but this was around 2 miles away. But when you're going as slow as I was, that was a long time on feet. 2014 came and I decided I needed a goal. So I booked to do the Abidash race. I felt crazy. Over 6 miles in a day, that's weeks of effort for me. But my voice said I could, so it was booked. Race day came and it took me just over an hour to complete, but the job was done. I believe I was around 13 stone at this point, but my weight was no longer at the forefront of my mind. Improving was. Every year since, my time has come down, but this was not enough. In 2016, I figured a new challenge a year was in order, and so I booked my first half marathon. This again was a distance I'd not run before, and so I had some training ahead of me. I entered the Mablethorpe half marathon and ran it with my brother and a friend. I could not believe it, but I managed it in 1 hour and 44 minutes. My voice was now hooked, so the following year it was a marathon. In October 2017, I ran Amsterdam Marathon, another important milestone as I'd never been abroad before, as I was terrified of flying. The time was not great and is still work in progress, but 2018 came and I decided 2 marathons were in order. With that, I booked Brighton at the beginning of the year and was lucky enough to get into the New York Marathon in November. This, of course, was an absolute highlight. 2018 was also the year I joined a local running club called KCAC. I've met some amazing people here and they keep you motivated. Being a part of a community of the friendliest people that enjoy something as much as you really opens your eyes to the power of this sport. My next challenge is a triathlon. I never really learned how to swim and so I have been working from the ground up on this. I started lessons and throughout 2018 worked hard on this so that 2019 can be the year along with 4 marathons. Every time I put on my running shoes and head outside, I'm so grateful for the air in my lungs, the people I smile at in the street, the sunlight on my skin and the feeling that nothing can stop me. It's now 2019 and so many years have gone by since my problems with food, etc. began. I would be lying if I said it's gone away completely. I've been single nearly 20 years because I still struggle with confidence. I still struggle with portions and I'm ashamed to say I still to this day think about removing food immediately after I've eaten. But that said, I am in control, I know me, and I know how to handle those thoughts. I put on my running shoes. I am a runner, and running saved my life. There you go.